Hello, New York friends. How are you? So we're in Guilderland, New York, just outside of Albany, and you'll see behind me one of our historic Route 20 signs. This is a rare sign along the side of Route 20, and that's for several reasons. And I'm going to explain to you briefly what our issues are and what we're doing. We initially wanted to propose a historic Route 20 Scenic Byway across the state of New York in order to put these signs up from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania borders. However, we were going about doing this and we hit a few snags very early on. First of all, several towns in western New York objected to a scenic byway. The reason for that is, you need to stake out the entire highway and say where there are billboards, where there are not, and you can no longer put billboards up. And that's a big sticking point for some towns, especially out in grape country in western New York. And there's already a scenic byway out there on Route 5, and they didn't want that for 20. Or they just didn't want to be restricted. They're not opposed to the idea. They just didn't like the restrictions. Next, New York State is, again, very picky. So these signs can't be put up on state property. So if you look really closely, it's actually on private property. And it was funny talking to the state of New York, and basically they were like, well, we don't like you putting up the signs, but we can't tell you not to put them up on private property, but we'd rather you didn't put them up until it was official. But anyway, so Guilderland was kind enough to actually have these put up on private property, and we're at Gade Farm here, and they were very gracious to put it on their private property. So that's one other issue. Next, well, we're going to try for a New York State scenic auto trail, and that's where we're at right now. We are working with Assemblyman Brian Cole's office out in Canandaigua to draft legislation to create a New York State scenic auto trail, similar to the wine trails out in the Finger Lakes in western New York and a few other trails. There's already a snag because there's a scenic byway and they have to see if they can go ahead and do that, but that's where we're at. And then hopefully we'll either have signs like this or very similar along New York State, along that 1926 original alignment, to bring you back into the small towns and also to promote tourism on this highway. Interestingly, the longest highway in New York doesn't get any love, doesn't get much recognition when you're talking about tourism, even though it goes through some of the greatest places like Albany, and except for the scenic byway, but the Finger Lakes even, and then of course western New York along Lake Erie. So hopefully we'll be there sometime soon, updating you and telling you how this is progressing. So we just wanted to tell you, but for everybody, enjoying your trip on historic Route 20.